In the isolated town of Barrow, Alaska, there are no roads connecting it to the outside world. Once every year, the town is plunged into darkness for 30 days, an event known as the Polar Night. A mysterious man, known as the Stranger, arrives by boat and notices an eerie ship anchored far off the coast before making his way toward Barrow. Outside the town, Sheriffs Eben and Billy discover a pile of burned cell phones buried in the snow. It's unusual and gives them a bad feeling. As they watch the sun set, they realize it won't rise again for an entire month. In Barrow, people are preparing for the long darkness. Some are staying, while others are catching the last flight out. Unnoticed by anyone, a shadowy figure slips into a dog kennel and brutally kills all the snow dogs. Eben and Billy visit Bo, who's dealing with a gas leak in his bulldozer. Eben gives him a warning ticket, but they're soon alerted about the dead dogs. At the same time, Eben's ex-wife Stella is rushing to the airport. Her car gets hit by a bulldozer, forcing her to call Eben for help. Not wanting to see her, he sends Billy instead. Despite Billy's efforts, Stella misses her flight and is now stuck in Barrow for the month of darkness. Eben investigates the kennel and finds the dogs were killed in a gruesome manner. The owners, Ally and John, are devastated and confused about who could have done it. At the station, Eben's grandmother, Helen, and his younger brother, Jake, are helping out. They hear about damage at the Utilidor, so Eben goes to check it out. Carter and Wilson show him their helicopter, which has been wrecked, even though it was securely locked up. Meanwhile, at the cell tower, Gus hears strange noises and steps outside to investigate. He sees the town's lights flickering before shadowy figures surround and attack him. They're vampires. In a diner, the Stranger asks for raw meat and something to drink. When told that alcohol isn't served during the dark month, he becomes aggressive. Luckily, Eben and Stella arrive and defuse the situation, arresting the Stranger and locking him up at the station. Elsewhere, a group of pipeline workers finish up their tasks when one of them is suddenly dragged into the darkness. His body is thrown back, lifeless. Another worker tries to escape, but the last one is too frightened to move, giving the vampires an easy target. At the station, Eben questions the Stranger about how he reached the town, but the man remains silent. Suddenly, the internet goes down, followed by the phone lines. Then, the entire town loses power. The Stranger grins and warns that they are coming. Eben heads to the cell tower and finds blood leading to Gus's severed head. Horrified, he rushes back to Barrow to warn everyone to stay indoors and advises those without generators to go to the diner for safety. At John's house, Ally is cooking when a vampire smashes through the window and drags her outside. John grabs his rifle and tries to save her, but is overpowered by the vampire, who takes Ally away. Back at the station, the Stranger keeps taunting them about the coming danger. When Jake angrily throws a piece of his game at him, the Stranger picks it up, planning to use it to escape. He attacks Jake, but Eben arrives just in time and shoots him in the arm, then cuffs him to the cell door. The Stranger laughs, talking about everyone dying, but refuses to give any clear answers. Eben tells Helen and Jake to stay inside, while he and Stella go out to find the attacker. As they drive, they spot something strange. Stella uses binoculars and quickly warns Eben to get back in the car. A vampire suddenly jumps on the vehicle, and Eben fires at it, but the bullets have no effect. Stella slams on the brakes, causing the creature to fall off, and they speed back to town. When they return, chaos has erupted. Fires burn, and gunshots echo through the streets. Helen radios for help, but by the time Eben and Stella get back to the station, Helen and Jake are gone, leaving only a trail of blood behind. The Stranger, still locked up, bitterly mutters that they didn't take him and begs for death, but Stella stops Eben from granting his wish. Meanwhile, the vampires gather around their leader, Marlowe. He orders them to behead their victims to prevent them from becoming vampires, and remarks that the Dark Town is the perfect hunting ground. They then unleash a brutal attack on Barrow, slaughtering anyone they find. A group of terrified survivors hides in a diner, realizing their guns are useless against the creatures. Eben and Stella arrive and are relieved to find Jake safe, but Helen hasn't made it. They discuss their next move. Carter suggests taking shelter at the Utilidor, but it's too far. Someone else mentions a neighbor's house with a hidden attic that can only be accessed by a pull-down ladder. It was boarded up before the owner left town. Eben comes up with a plan. Carter will lead the group to the house while he and Stella create a distraction. They drive around, drawing the vampires away. The creatures attack the car, smashing the windows. Eben discovers that shooting them in the head works and kills one. But Marlowe destroys his gun, and the vampires flip the car. Just when it seems like the end, Bo arrives as bulldozer, crushing vampires under its wheels. Eben and Stella jump in, and they race to the safe house. Once inside, they find the attic secure and organize shifts for sleeping and rationing food. Eben realizes that their knowledge of the long darkness could give them an advantage over the vampires. Elsewhere, Marlowe visits a stranger in a cell. The stranger believes he will be turned into a vampire as a reward for his help, but Marlowe betrays him and kills him instead. 6 days pass, and the survivors continue to hide, but they struggle as Wilson's father, Isaac, is haunted by nightmares of his dead wife. One night, they hear noises outside. Stella peeks through a hole and sees the vampires destroying nearby houses. Fear spreads, and some want to flee before they're discovered. Eben insists they must stay together to survive. They realize they need more supplies and decide to move to the safer utilidor, but need a snowstorm for cover, so they wait. On the 7th day, they hear Kristen crying for help outside. Eben notices the vampires silently jumping across rooftops, using her as bait. Some of the group wants to rescue her, so Eben goes outside and finds John hiding under a house. He tells John to stay hidden while he tries to save Kristen, but before he can reach her, the vampires attack and kill her. While they're distracted, Eben goes back to help John but realizes John is turning into a vampire. John's eyes look wild, and his body moves in a creepy, jerky way. He attacks Eben, throwing him against a swing set and trapping him in his chains. Desperate to survive, Eben grabs an axe and fights back, eventually killing John. Exhausted and shaken, Eben returns to the house but has an asthma attack and collapses. Outside, Marlowe finds John's body and realizes someone else is nearby. Later, while Stella is on watch, Isaac sneaks out of the basement. Stella and Wilson chase him, begging him to stay, but he's too scared and heartbroken, convinced his wife is doomed. He locks himself in a bathroom and escapes through the window. Wilson runs after him, shoving Stella aside. Meanwhile, a vampire sneaks into the house, forcing Eben and Stella to hide in the bathroom. The vampire sniffs around but leaves when it hears Wilson outside. As Wilson's screams echo through the night, Eben and Stella feel guilty for not saving him. They hear noises on the roof and see the vampires leaving as a snowstorm begins. Using the storm as cover, the group rushes to a store for supplies. While searching the aisles, they find a young vampire girl feeding on a corpse. Panicking, they try to escape, but she attacks Eben, making him drop his axe. The others trap her against the wall and urge Jake to kill her with the axe. Shaken but determined, Jake does it but is emotionally scarred. With supplies gathered, they get ready to leave but realize the storm has passed, forcing them to hide in the store until the next snowstorm. On the 18th day, Eben realizes they can't stay because the vampires are getting closer. The utilidor is too far without snow cover, so they decide to head to the police station first. Eben remembers Helen's UV lights and plans to use them against the vampires. He creates a distraction while the others escape. One vampire notices them and attacks, but they reach the station safely. Meanwhile, the vampires surround Helen's house. Marlowe sends Iris in first, but she's burned by the UV light Eben set up. The vampires cut off the generator, shutting down the lights. Eben escapes through the back door, staying in contact with the group through walkie-talkies. Marlowe puts Iris out of her misery after seeing her pain. The other vampires chase Eben, but Bo arrives in a ditch driller, running over several vampires. He fights them off as long as he can but gets overwhelmed. Knowing he can't escape, Bo crashes into a building and sets off explosives, killing several vampires. Eben sees the explosion and realizes Bo sacrificed himself, but Marlowe survives and mocks his bravery before killing him. Eben reunites with the group at the station, but Carter reveals he was bitten by the vampire girl. Heartbroken and tired of living after losing his family, Carter asks Eben to end his misery before he turns. Although it's painful, Eben does it to protect the group while the others wait outside. On day 27, they see light from a nearby house. Eben and Stella investigate and find Billy with his dead family. He killed him to save him from the vampires, but couldn't end his own life. Eben is angry that Billy didn't try to save them. They go back to the station, but find it empty. Realizing it's snowing, they head to the utilidor, guessing the others went there. On the way, they hide under a house when they hear Gail crying in the street. Stella runs out to save her just as a vampire appears. Eben distracts the vampire, but Billy panics and runs off, attracting another vampire. Eben reaches the utilidor and reunites with the others, but Stella and Gail are missing, leaving him worried. Meanwhile, Marlowe orders his vampires to find and kill every last survivor to keep their existence a secret. At the utilidor, Billy arrives but unknowingly brings a vampire with him. The creature attacks, overpowering Eben and almost throwing him into a metal grinder. Billy saves Eben by pushing the vampire into the grinder, but loses his arms in the process. Tragically, Billy begins turning into a vampire, and Eben is forced to kill him. On day 30, the survivors feel relieved knowing sunrise is near. Eben contacts Stella on the walkie-talkie and learns she and Gail are hiding under a car, surrounded by vampires. He tells Stella to stay hidden until morning, so they can see the sunrise together. But the vampires grow impatient and set the town on fire using oil from Bo's bulldozer. Trapped under the car, Stella and Gail are at risk of burning or being killed by the vampires. Knowing a human can't fight the vampires, Eben makes a bold choice. He injects himself with Billy's blood, turning into a vampire. As he transforms, The others are unsure whether to trust him, but Jake stops them from attacking his brother. Eben hugs Jake goodbye before leaving to fight Marlowe. Eben confronts Marlowe, who easily overpowers him at first. But as Eben's transformation completes, he gains incredible vampire strength. Marlowe goes in for final blow, but Eben's eyes turn pitch black, and he punches Marlowe's head so hard it kills him instantly. Without their leader, the other vampires flee. Eben doesn't chase them because the sun is about to rise. Knowing the sunlight will kill him, Eben goes to a hill overlooking the town with Stella. They share one last moment as the sun rises. Eben holds Stella close as his body turns to ashes in her arms. If you like this video and want to see more, subscribe and share.